Adventures of a farm boy going to the cities.
Yeah. I always thought it was a great adventure back in the 30s when I had my first chance to visit my cousin and my aunt and uncle in Minneapolis. And I always remember they came out to pick up my cousin, Arnie, and then I went back to the cities.
How far?
Back to Minneapolis.
Uh-huh. Now, how far was that?
Pardon?
How long did that take?
Well, I remember we started at 8 and it was dark before we got to Minneapolis. It probably took, they might have maybe taken about 4 hours in those days. Probably He was driving, and this was in the 30s, so he had probably a 30 model car. He maybe need 4 or 5 hours. But I can't remember for sure.
Yeah.
And I remember one of the first sights I saw as we drove into Minneapolis when we started seeing all these lights, which was completely foreign to me.
Mm-hmm.
I saw the beacon from the Old Chamberlain Airport. Every once in a while you see that flash. I'd never seen anything like that before, so everything was brand new to me. All things was new. And then as we got into driving down the street with the traffic, which we thought, obviously, I thought that was a lot of traffic in comparison to what it is now, but it was still driving down Lake Street, coming into Minneapolis, driving down Highway, probably 212 was or that, coming into Minneapolis and starting to see the lights, and a little further in, you might see some higher buildings that had lights on it. And then we drove into their house, and we got in the house, and it was almost bewildering, Because I used to go on to the outdoor toilet.
Yeah.
That was the film for me. And here they showed me rooms, and this was and I thought, ugh. I mean, how do you run all this stuff? I maybe didn't even know how to flush the toilet. And running water in a sink, and I thought, I don't know about this. This is completely out of my territory. So I was quite apprehensive, to say the least. And I always remember when I first flushed the toilet, it made so much noise, I thought something had broke or something, I thought, oh gosh, now what happened? Well, that was the experience I got over, and then they would go to the refrigerator and get a bottle of milk out of the refrigerator, and I said, dude, there's the milk comes in bottles. And then they put a cap on it, and then we ate supper in the kitchen, and they had a modern stove, like it was probably a gas stove. They weren't picking up wood behind the kitchen range and firing up the kitchen range and doing their cooking. And that was my idea, we were cooking on the top of a wood stove, kitchen range, with a pile of wood behind it.
Yeah.
And here, so turn a knob, pow, it's almost. And in the morning, the milkman would come by with the bottles and bring them in and put them in the refrigerator. And then, of course, that dial phone, that was completely, we didn't even have a phone at home. And here they had a dial phone, and I think they probably taught me how to use the telephone so I could find a call or something,
Mm-hmm.
So, just in a matter of probably a week, I learned a lot about living in the cities. And then Arnie would go over to the store, Mother sent him to the store to buy if she needed anything at the store, we'd walk over there, and the clerk come out, and they'd buy whatever it is, and she took out her book and just wrote down what she bought, and we walked out, said, ugh. did the difference. Didn't have to trade in any eggs or cream or anything, you know. All they did was wrote down in the book, and then they probably got a bill in the mail.
Mm-hmm.
No. None at night. I don't know if I slept much during the night because I could hear the streetcars, you know, those lights all over.
Uh-huh.
Streetcar come by, and I figured. And out in the farm was perfectly quiet except probably a cow moving or something.
Uh-huh.
And that was one thing I remember. It was different. And
Well, you decided you wanted to...
and of course we had to stay on out one little lot.
Mm-hmm.
We weren't allowed to run over on the neighbor's yard. I was going to run free in the whole township if we wanted to, you know. And then I thought, here you got this little space, we got to stay. Otherwise you stay on the street and walk on the sidewalk. And of course those guys had bicycles, so they rode bikes around. And it was so...
So did you decide you wanted to stay down there in the cities then?
Well, no, I just... you know, it was probably a little uncomfortable because I was out of my element to get used to all this modern, and and then I had to worry I wasn't behaving the way I should, you know. I had some kid from out there. Well, they wanted me to come and stay, so I started thinking, well, maybe they just, of course I was treated like I was at home. My aunt was really good-natured and everything. She was a lot like my mother, you know.
Yeah.
So they tried their best to make me feel like a city kid. But it'd take more than a week. It'd take more than a week to get used to living in a big city.
Yeah.
And then we, one of the big things we went to, we'd get on a streetcar. If you had a nickel, you could ride on the streetcar all over Minneapolis. So my cousin and I would get on the streetcar and drop our nickel in that slot, and we rode downtown and walked around downtown and probably go down or buy some model airplane stuff and stop and have a malted milk at one of these special places and get back on the streetcar and ride home again. And
that's in your
that was brand new. Everything was new to me. Everything I did was brand new.
Adventure in the cities, huh?
That was adventure, because adventure is something that's new. You're doing something that probably you haven't done before. So I thought it was a real adventure, and I always remember that.
So, did you ever decide to go back to the cities then after?
Well, yeah.
Did you dare drive down there or anything?
Yeah, I thought it was all these new things that I was learning, you know, there. And I got old enough, like when I was old enough to drive, I had my driver's license. I was in high school. And the first time I went to Minneapolis, probably with my parents would go to the state fair. And then we'd spend 2-3 days at planning. We'd go to the state fair. So that was something. That was an adventure. Was brand spanking new too.
Yeah.
We'd never seen a state fair before, and all the horses and all. It was just for kids. It was just really. It's exciting for the kids to go there.
Yeah.
So then, that normally the time we would go to Minneapolis after that is, I'd go with my parents and we'd stay there for a few days with my...
So when's the first time you actually drove in the cities?
So then I was probably maybe junior, senior... Probably it was maybe a senior in high school before I would drive there alone.
Yeah.
And then I thought, this thing I'd drive... I'd drive... in there myself. I mean, I had enough confidence to drive in the traffic to get to where my aunt and uncle lived. So
Think you'd want to drive down there now?
Well, right now I'd be mighty to drive that same route now. Been how many years later? Right? I mean, I wouldn't, I don't know if I'd dare drive that same route now because for traffic and speed and all that. I was driving a 36 Chevrolet. And I knew one route. I knew one. I got on Highway 212. I drove into that, led right into Lake Street to Budweiser.
So I'm going to ask you about one of your trips down to the cities in your brother's car.
Well, I would drive right into Lake Street. That if I followed that highway, I took a route that I really knew. And then I'd follow Lake Street till I got to Hiawatha Avenue thing. Cut a corner across. So I'd turn right there. I knew the intersection there. Right? I keep going that till I got to 37th Street. And I make a left turn over the railroad tracks and follow over to 34th Avenue. There I was at Ernie's. I knew that.
What kind of car were you driving?
No, I was driving a 36 Chevy. I was driving the 36 Chevy. So I had learned that route, and that whenever I went, into Minneapolis, that I'd follow the same route. Drives you to do it. I'm not say it, but I was always interesting in.
You're heading down to the cities. How'd you get there? I mean, what'd you ride in?
I'd ride in a 36 Chevrolet.
You had your own?
No, the 36 Chevrolet that I drove belonged to my brother Roy, and he had enlisted in the Marine Corps. And he said, "You can use my car when I'm gone." So they said, "If you want to." And I said, "Well, good." Then I even could take it to school when I was in high school. In my senior year, some days I would drive the car to school if we wanted to do something after school. So I'd take a 36 Chevy and drive it to school.
What would your parents say about taking it all the way to the cities?
Well, they didn't say anything against it. They just thought, I'm high school, probably they do.
But isn't it? The city's kind of a scary place.
Yeah, it is a terrible, scary place when you're not used to it. It's different than driving in Montevideo and up and down Mont Township. All of a sudden, cars and policemen on the corner of stopping traffic and street cars and.
But did you do anything to make it look like your own car?
The only thing I put on there was my pilot's sign. That was after Roy had left. I figured, well, as long as he said I could use it, I can maybe dress it up a little bit. So
just a little.
And I drove it until I went, and I joined the army, and then after that, I don't know if they put it in the shed or. So Roy had it when he came back. He had the car. Still.
And he was all right with it. You took good care of it then.
Yep. And my dad had his own car, and of course Kurt and Lyle were too young to drive.
Yeah.
Earl was already left in the military. He was already in the military. So I was the only boy there that was eligible to drive.
Yeah.
So the 36 Chevy, I could just about take that anytime I wanted to.
Well, that's pretty nice of your brother.
Yeah. And I was 36, so actually it was fairly new yet, It was, well, it was 42.